All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to connect some pretty incredible dots, linking a chilling 50-year-old computer prophecy to a planetary-scale surveillance machine that, according to our sources, is being switched on as we speak.
Now, that quote, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But it's not. It came from a 1973 computer program at MIT called World 1. And its prediction of total collapse wasn't just some abstract warning. Our sources argue it actually lit the fuse on a plan that is only now, decades later, truly coming to fruition.
So this program, World 1, it wasn't just some academic exercise. It was a seriously complex model developed for a really influential group of industrialists and thinkers known as the Club of Rome. And for the very first time, a computer was used to look at the entire planet as one single, interconnected, and very fragile system.
Okay, so this is what the computer spit out, and honestly, it's pretty unnerving to look at. It basically maps our global trajectory, and it pinpointed the year 2020 as the critical moment, the point where the dominoes really start to fall. From there, it's just a steep, steep dive toward a total system collapse sometime between 2040 and 2050.
So imagine you're the Club of Rome. You're staring into this digital abyss that a computer just showed you. According to the source documents, they reached a pretty startling conclusion. Individual nations weren't the solution, they were actually part of the problem. They argued the whole idea of national sovereignty was obsolete.
And look, they didn't just stop there. They didn't just say, hey, we've got a problem. They came up with a solution. And the sources quote their plan directly, a brand new form of global management. One designed to slowly, whittle away at national borders and replace governments as we know them with a kind of centralized, technocratic control.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. How in the world does a 50-year-old theory about global management connect to the technology we see today? Well, the sources point to a surprisingly elegant and, frankly, a deeply unsettling blueprint, the geometry of the geodesic dome. Now, it's super important to understand we are not talking about a literal dome here, like steel and glass. This is all about a mathematical principle for creating the perfect gap-free surveillance network. Think of a soccer ball. That shape, an icosahedron, is mathematically the most efficient way to cover a sphere. No gaps, no blind spots, a perfect panopticon, but without any walls.
All right, here's where the theory smacks right into reality. The sources present this table as Exhibit A. When you actually map out the mathematically perfect locations, the nodes, for a global surveillance grid, they land almost exactly on top of critical U.S. military and intelligence hubs. We're talking Guam, Pearl Harbor, Pine Gap in Australia. It's uncanny. It's almost like the math predicted the map.
So according to the sources, this global blueprint isn't just for looking out at the world anymore. It's being turned inward, a process they call an implosion. The same geometry of total control is now being used to create a domestic grid, with different cities in the U.S. playing very specific roles. First up, every system needs a place to build its parts, right? A kind of metabolic center. The research identifies this as the Foundry in Columbus, Ohio. This is where the defense tech company Anduril Industries is building a massive facility to churn out the physical eyes and ears of the grid, the drones, and the sensor towers. And the sheer scale of this place, it's just hard to wrap your head around. 5 million square feet. They're basically rebooting the old arsenal of democracy for the digital age. And the sources argue this is how you turn the Rust Belt into the Foundry of the Panopticon, by tying a region's economic revival directly to the mass production of surveillance. Okay, so you've built the hardware. Now you need to teach it how to think. That brings us to the testing ground in Grand Forks, North Dakota. This is where the system's AI learns to operate all by itself, flying way beyond what any human operator can see. And the cold weather there? It makes it the perfect training environment for the tech that will be needed to watch that huge, unwalled northern border. From the testing ground, we move to the brain of the operation. In Ashburn, Virginia, in a place they call Data Center Alley, all the information from thousands of these sensors converges. This is where all that raw data gets fused together using software from Palantir, and it's cross-referenced with the government's massive biometric database, a library of faces, fingerprints, iris scans, even DNA. And finally, this all leads to what the sources call the Kinetic Edge. In places like Eagle Pass, Texas, the virtual grid becomes physical. It becomes force.
You have a huge number of these autonomous surveillance towers that detect movement, and then they direct human teams on the ground to intercept. It's the final step, closing the loop from data to direct action.
So this huge, complex machine is being built piece by piece. The big question, the one you're probably asking right now is, who's running the show? The sources don't point to some single shadowy figure. Instead, they draw a direct 50-year line from the theorists of the past to the operators of today.
And this slide really lays it all out. It connects the dots over 50 years. According to these sources, the Club of Rome created the ideological need, the why, for a planetary control system. Today, you have policy groups like the Heritage Foundation writing the rules for that system, the how. And then you have a new Silicon Valley defense group actually building the tools to make it all a reality.
So let's get down to it. Who's really in the driver's seat here? The sources argue it's not one single group hiding in the shadows. Instead, they point to this kind of lineage of control. You had the theorists who first defined the problem. Now you have the policy architects writing the rulebook and the tech operators who are actually building the machine. The ultimate control, they argue, isn't held by any one person. It's being embedded into the very code of the system itself.
So, in the end, the sources leave us with this really chilling thought. The computer's prophecy of doom wasn't just a prediction. It became the justification. It created the reason to build a cage, all in the name of saving us from the chaos the machine itself predicted. And that leaves us with one final, incredibly important question. Who decides when to close the door?